Let's cross to our correspondent, Rawad Taha. He is covering this story from Beirut, Lebanon. Rawad, can you tell us a little more about this region in Syria that was hit and who controls it currently?
Okay, well, first, as you mentioned, that given the fact that the epicenter is in Turkey, yet multiple Syrian cities are devastated, this is due to the proximity. So, the major cities affected in Syria are Idlib, Aleppo, and Latakia. Idlib is primarily controlled by the Syrian opposition. It is the closest in proximity, roughly around 90 kilometers away from the epicenter. Aleppo, on the other hand, is partly controlled by the regime and partly controlled in the outskirts by the Syrian opposition. It is the second city in proximity, around 120 kilometers away from the epicenter. And finally, Latakia, which is on the coast, it's 220 kilometers away from the center, and that is controlled by the Syrian regime. The situation is really devastating in both Aleppo and Idlib. And we have conflicting numbers of the total death toll in Syria, given the fact that the reporting on the opposition side is coming from the White Helmets, who have reported in their last update more than 350 dead. The Syrian regime, however, in its last death toll update, it reported more than 450 people dead as a result of the toppling down of multiple story buildings. This is the situation in terms of the casualties and who controls what.
Hmm. Now, this is a region that was already suffering after years of war, and a lot of the people living there were displaced persons. So, before this earthquake even hit, what did it look like, life look like there for people living in this region?
Well, in particular, in the region of Idlib, which is controlled by the Syrian opposition, basically their land crossings towards the rest of the Syria, which is controlled by the regime, is very limited, if not completely stopped and halted. So they don't have access to the services coming in from the Syrian government. On the other hand, they do get some certain support from the Turkish side, but that has also been limited at times. So the big question right now is, given the fact that that situation in southern Turkey on the borders with the opposition-controlled areas of Syria is already devastated, who's going to come to help the people living in Idlib and in the regions controlled by the Syrian opposition, given that the situation in Turkey is already devastated and Turkey can barely help itself right now. So the residents of that region and the White Helmets in particular have been calling for international aid to be delivered as soon as possible to those areas. However, on the other side, where in the cities controlled by the Syrian regime or the Syrian government, the Ministry of Health and other services coming directly from the Assad regime have been working in trying to help people on the ground and in trying to mitigate the aftermath. But the big question lies on who's going to support the people in the opposition-held areas, given the fact that Turkey is already devastated.
Rawad Taha covering the situation in Syria post earthquake from Lebanon. Thank you so much.